Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's presentation of Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. This show covers experiences, haunted locations, and their histories, high strangeness, including cryptozoology, ufologists, psychics, mediums, authors, and media personalities. Join her tonight as she seeks to bring light to those that exist by hiding in the dark. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the host of Paranormal Experience Radio, exclusive right here on the Unnext Network, Kat Hobson. Kat?
Hello there. I am so glad that you're here. There we go. Hello there. I am so glad that y'all are here with me tonight. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope that everyone's vision survived the eclipse. I saw the sun tonight wrapped up in clouds. I was like, oh, don't look. So anyway, it's just one of those goofy things that I do is check the sun out pretty often. I am really excited for the guest I have for you tonight. Killen is somebody that I found him when he wrote his first book. I know he's working on more, but he is somebody who has experienced paranormal all his life. He was born in the Philippines. He wound up living all over New England. He was in Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Illinois, and then to Northern Virginia. He started seeing spirit as a child. He really wants to bring that information to everyone. He has been, I guess, 15 years, more than that now, but on this journey. And I was lucky enough to get to talk with him a few years ago. And now I am so excited to bring him to you because he is a lot of fun. He is a great author. I enjoyed his book, which goes to me. And you can find it on Amazon too. So, Killen, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me, Kat. It's good to be back.
Oh my gosh. I was so excited when you were free and could come back on with me. And then, we got this grooving. And this is our first video show.
Yes, it is. We usually did the radio.
We did. And, I hope that you like it. This is something that I started doing a couple of months ago here on the UNX network, and I love it. I'm very appreciative, A, of being here, but B, having Race Hobbs as my producer now, so I can focus on you. So, yay. Well, what have you been up to in the interim since we spoke last?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's been a bit of a journey these last couple of years. Life kind of hit. I've had some unfortunate experiences. I had a couple deaths in the family.
I'm so sorry.
I got COVID twice.
Well, go big or go home, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
wow.
Switched jobs. I moved. So it's been a bit. I'm still, like I said, I'm putting the finishing touches on my latest book, but life just keeps throwing me curveballs, and I'm trying to hit them out of the park.
Well, I don't have any doubt that you can hit them out of the park because that's just who you are. But, one of the things that I have so much respect for you tonight about is the fact that you sat down and wrote a book. I've been writing a book for 3 years. Actually, I've been writing 3 books for 3 years because I have ADD, and focusing on one and finishing it apparently is something that's very difficult. And you are much more methodical in your thought process, and I'm sure in your practices as well. So I'm very full of admiration for you because you got that first one out and now you're working on that second one despite all of the things to overcome. So go you.
The one piece of advice I can give you, Kat, is just keep going. Don't stop.
Yeah.
You'll get there. The finish line will be there, whether it takes three years or 30. Just never
Oh,
get
I hope not
if you
30. I'm
if you
old.
really want if you really want to get it done,
I'm old.
you'll get it done. I mean that's the one piece of advice when people ask me, "Do you have any advice for promising writers?" I said, "Never give up and keep going."
Yeah.
So
Well, I do. And Phyllis Gotti, who owns Fate Magazine, asked me to submit an experience that I had, and I did. But so it was first published in Fate Magazine. It's also in my book, just a little different, you know. So I found that if I just sit down and write one chapter at a time, I get the deets that I want in there. Is that what you do? You just kind of go by your
yeah.
guideline. What kind of guideline do you create?
Yeah, actually, the one thing that I found out through this journey is that no one's the same. I mean,
Hmm.
I know authors that will do outline upon outline. I hate outlines because being
I
an
hate
English
outlines too.
major, I had to write so many papers. I had to do outlines coming out of my ears.
Yeah.
But so basically, my thing is, I get the idea, I sit down, I just hammer. It just pops in my head, the head to the fingers onto the
Right.
keyboard, and I just keep going. That's always been my method. I really don't have any, obviously research aside, but once I get started going, like I said, you get an idea and you just go. I mean, I've had, excuse me, when I was doing this book before I submitted it, I mean, I had paragraphs all over the place. I had, just incomplete thoughts. I had scribble pads.
I
But
have
yeah,
scribble pads,
yeah,
but
and
that's not a good way
somehow
for
it
me.
just, yeah, you just pull it together. But
Yeah.
yeah, for me, it's just I get the idea and I just go.
Okay. Well, I feel better because that's what I've been doing. And I have a friend who has written 1.5 books. He was halfway through his first book and now he's written a second. Now he's on his third
Awesome.
and fourth. So I'm just kind of like, leave me alone. Be quiet. I'm working on it. But he is my biggest cheerleader besides my husband. So they're both pretty amazing. But it's because there's so many experiences that I've had in the first book that I'm working on is about the paranormal, and the other is about my experiences in learning about ufology and getting to hear from people a lot more degreed than I am, relevant to that. That's a whole different kettle of fish, right?
Oh,
So ufology is fun. And I know that you've had ET experience. So I love that. Well, we got 2 hours to get all of this conversation in, and I'm the only one talking. I'm stepping on you. I'm
no, no,
sorry.
no, no. Please, that's like I said. That again, this is kind of like the way I write my books. There's no formal anything, and some of that's the best thing because when I go on these shows, they always ask what we want to talk about. I said, whatever. I mean,
Everything.
it doesn't have to be. Yeah, 2 hours is never enough.
It's not. It wasn't the first time we spoke, and you were worried.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
because you were fresh out of the box with your book.
right.
And it turned out to be so much. I had so much fun, and I felt like you did.
I
So,
had a blast.
you know, one of the things that, and I know that you've changed jobs, but one of the things that really struck me when we spoke before, and I think that people who know you and have learned some about you would agree with this, is that um, one of the job that you had when last we spoke, you had gone to work working with recovering addicts.
Hmm.
And that I have addicts and some have passed away in my family. It's such a difficult thing. It's very difficult being a family member of an addict. It's much worse being an addict. And not everybody understands that because it's almost like people feel like they're making a choice to do it.
Right.
And that's so not true. I mean, it's not nobody gets up in the morning and says, "Oh, I think I'm going to go be a junkie today." I mean, that's not anybody's color Kool-Aid. And yet, I have found myself when I lived in downtown Birmingham in my younger period of my life, and there were people who were street people then too. And that was way, way back. And I would lose patience because, I knew that they were panhandling all day. They had, they were getting money because I gave them a lot of it. And then this guy came up and tried to make me give him, I smoked at the time, give him a pack of cigarettes. And I was not very polite with that. And so that evening, he tried to get in my car with me, not realizing that my husband was driving and I was in the middle. And that was an educational moment for me. A, lock the door, idiot, right? And B, because he was in the car until he realized that it wasn't just me. And, and my husband almost killed me putting him out of the car, trying to reach across me to get him out.
Right.
So either way, I was in trouble. But, and all that was that I had lost patience and treated him less than in my frustration because it felt like I was always who he was trying to get stuff off of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I was not very kind. And yet, I think that now, of course, I'm very supportive and I try to help. If I know someone's going through, 12 step or Naranon or whatever, I try to be very supportive of them. And sometimes they just don't want you to. I mean, they really are, they don't want to change because it's work. They're afraid that that craving's going to take over. How do you deal with that as somebody who has worked with addicts? I mean, were you a residential facility? Were you just a outpatient or?
No, I was residential.
I thought so.
Yeah, if you remember towards the end of my book, I had a
Yeah.
lot of good experiences working overnight there.
Yes. Yes.
There was a lot of darkness. Well, the one thing I found out, and I'll give you an example. We had two gentlemen that ended up dying before I left,
Mhm.
and they would have their pattern was come October, they'd come in. Come April, they hit the woods.
Yeah.
And they'd live out in the woods. And I always asked them, I said, why do you guys do that? I said, you guys can get your stuff together. You're clean. You come in there for 6, 7 months, and then you go back out in the woods. And they said, Kevin, honestly, because we want to.
That's it. Yes.
It was like
yes.
they didn't have to, but they wanted to. They chose to go out there and live the way that they did. And that's basically, and that kind of floored me because I was like, wait a minute, that didn't make any sense to me because I was thinking, okay, maybe you're homeless, this and that. And the one guy came from a very wealthy family.
Hmm.
And he was like, Kevin, man, he said, my family's got tons of money, but here I am in the woods and my bottle of wine, I'm happy. And I was like,
Right.
how can I be happy? Because I was looking at it from my point of view is I have shelter, I have food, I have a job, I have, all the necessities of life.
What would they?
Him, it was, him, it was that's what they did. And they did it. And like I said, they didn't have to pay taxes. They ended up usually stealing. And this guy told me, he said, I had a good scheme, Kevin. I said, I'd go to the residential homes and watch the mailman. And I'd go down there and I'd go steal out of the mailbox. And I made a lot of money doing that. And I got to eat well. And I was like,
wow.
So, and it just kind of floored me that it was their choice. It was like their choice for me to go to work. It was their choice to do what they were doing. And it was almost kind of hard to differentiate because once you look at it from another angle, then you're like, okay, I kind of understand that, but I still don't understand that because you're still dealing with the elements, but they wanted to do it and they were comfortable doing it.
Well, that's something that blew me away too. And I my idea of camping is roughing it is the lobby at the Holiday Inn, or if they don't have turn down service, okay, because I like the little toys that you get. Ouch, sorry. Everything went but I have friends who lived rough. And to me that was scary. I had times when I was transitioning from being married to being single, was moving to Atlanta, didn't have a job yet, that I slept in my car. Okay. I was never, I had my car. And if I wanted to spend the money, I could have gone to a hotel, I suppose, but I didn't have that much money. So, when I was going over to Atlanta to look for a job, I was sleeping in my car. And it didn't last long because I'm very quick to get a job if I want one. Not a hard time for me to do that. But it was so weird when I realized, because I was always in a safe place. I never never the side of the interstate or anything like that, or in a weird place. But it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, look at all these people that are here in the middle of the night that are, they're like just like shadows, right? And to me, that was something that I didn't understand either. Why don't you have at least some sort of a shelter to get into? And I do understand why it was April to October, right? I get that. But especially where you live. Here you could almost do it year round. But some do.
Yeah.
But how did you decide that that was what you wanted to do?
Well, I also came from a background of addiction. I had a lot of addiction in my family, and I was addicted myself. So I overcame mine without treatment.
Wow.
Which a lot of people don't do. And it was funny because I actually was accused by one of the clients there. Oh, you didn't really have a problem then. I said, no, I did have a problem. I just was able to overcome it without having to come here. And I wasn't trying to be condescending. I was being truthful. I just was like, I saw I was getting a problem. I came from that. And I was like, I didn't want to be that person. And I haven't had a drink in almost 25 years.
Holy wow.
Yeah. And there's times that, a beer sounds good, but a beer wouldn't be a beer for me. It'd be 10, 15, 20.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like that. But again, coming from the addictions, and again, I had one of my brothers pass 4 years ago, and most of his life he was addicted. Okay. And he was actually in the shelter when he died.
Oh.
So yeah, and my mother passed 25 years ago. She was addicted most of her life. So I grew up with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just kind of, I just knew where people were coming from, and I just wanted to be that kind of person. And again, I guess with my personality, helping people is something I like to do.
Yeah, it is. I can see that.
So yeah, just getting in there and doing that. And I spent almost 10 years in substance abuse, and it was rough. There was times where it was, we had a point in time where we had like, it seemed every other day somebody was dying. And we'd all work with these people, and we were like, what's going on here? Why are we coming to work? We're not helping them. They're dying. It's not our, So it was to the point where a lot of us were like going to give up. And we were like, no, we got to stick through this. And we have the people here. I said, that sucks that these people died, but we've got to help the ones that aren't.
Yeah.
So we pushed through that, but it was a horrible time for about 3 weeks one year.
Oh my gosh.
It seemed like every other day somebody that came through our program died, and we all worked with them, some closer than others, and it was just ridiculous. Like, what do we do? Because we're doing everything we can do. So but yeah, I think that's what it is just bringing my experience to people, and just seeing where they're coming from, and a lot of I learned a lot of things about a lot of people from working with hundreds of people throughout my time there, both male and female. I learned a lot about humanity.
Or the lack of.
Right. Absolutely.
That's, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, when you were saying about that gentleman that was the panhandler.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I realized, is that they will manipulate and use anything they can get to get what they want.
Which is not going into care.
No, exactly.
He had no interest. He had no interest in going into any kind of care.
Absolutely.
He wanted, and I mean, I saw him several times because we had a little post office there on the south side of Birmingham,
Mhm.
and they had a copier inside in the vestibule, and he would sleep wrapped around that copier when it was cold. And we don't ever get cold like you get, but it's still it was shelter with something that had an electrical element to it that was warm.
Right.
And that's when I was like, oh, I should probably not be quite so ugly to him. And then I was one more time, and then he tried to kill me. So I
And
lost
see
a lot of
that
sympathy for him then.
and that's the thing is that, I remember when I was in DC one time, this gentleman was panhandling, and I said, we were like, it was like right out in front of McDonald's, and I said, hey man, let me go in there and buy you a cheeseburger or something. I'll bring it out to you.
Yeah,
And he cussed me upside one side and down the other because he wanted money. He didn't want the damn food.
that happened.
So
A
I
friend
was
of
like, okay,
and you always think somebody's going to want food, right?
right.
And
He wanted
no,
the
because
money,
they won't eat. They don't want to eat. They
right?
want to, it'll run a high if depending on what they're using.
Yep,
They don't want to bathe because it will wash it off. They
yep,
get it back through their sweat glands.
yep.
And my daughter had a teacher in junior high that did that,
Mm.
and I was like a substitute, and I was like, oh no, you don't need to be around these middle schoolers, And she did not last very long because she was only barely maintaining, and then she lost it. But, um, you know, I find that so surprising. And one of my friends who has the biggest heart of anybody I know, except maybe you, came out of a restaurant one day, and there had been a girl huddled out on the thing. And he was like, well, here, go inside and get a meal. And he gave her cash. And I'm like, you can't give them cash.
Nope.
You can, and God love him. This was the nicest person that I know, to me anyway. And he did that. And I'm like, no, that's going to go right into whatever orifice she uses to put it in there.
Absolutely.
But so you said that you had experiences when you were working in the facility, and you and I talked a little bit about that in the past, but were your experiences relevant to the energies that were with the people who were addicted, or were they relevant to other people?
No, for the most part, they were relevant to the people. One of the prime examples I remember, so the building was set up kind of like a school, because actually I think it
Yeah.
actually was a former school. But you had like our staff office went out into their community, is what we called it. It
Hmm.
had chairs. It had the that's kind of where they hung out. They had their meetings, things like that. And then we went to a long
Right.
corridor to go upstairs to the rooms. Well, there was times where I would come downstairs and it would like I'd be walking through sludge because the air would change so heavy and thick
Yeah.
that I was like, okay. And I'd always have that. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know a lot of people in the paranormal world have, where you hear the voices, but you can't make out what they're saying. It's like almost like bees buzzing, but
Yeah.
there's words. It's kind of like the way I described it in my book was I walked into a restaurant, you hear the hum of the people talking
Yes.
low. There's conversations going on, but you can't understand what they're saying. So I got a
Yes.
lot of that walking through that, but it was a lot of negative energy. And we had people that came through there. The one girl, she wasn't there long. I found out she worshiped the devil, and she was doing rituals and stuff in her room. And when she left, we found all sorts.
Rituals.
Yeah, she was doing
But
like black witchcraft, things like that.
like again, was she doing them against y'all? Was she doing them against other people in there with her?
I think other
Um,
people that were the other people here that were there, not specifically staff, but she was doing it against her peers.
wow.
and we found all this crazy stuff. And when they left, we had, clean up their rooms and everything to get ready for the next person to come in, and we found pentagrams all over the place and
Yes.
tarot cards, things she wasn't supposed to have, because they weren't allowed to have quote unquote occult material in there, and I can understand that. But yeah,
Well, yeah.
she was something. So I know she didn't help, and she always
Right.
had a very dark energy about her, and I didn't really like her. And it wasn't anything like, I just knew, I could feel it off of her. And I told people, I said, that girl's dark. And people were like, yeah, I don't get a good vibe off of her. I said, I don't either. And now I know why, because what she was doing. And a lot of people, like with me being empathic, I
Mhm.
picked up a lot of energies off of people. And some of the people that came through there were just downright evil. I mean, that's
Yes.
that's the only way to describe it. They were so empty that we weren't going to help them. And I never said anything, because I don't like the not having the hope. But we found out later, a lot of people we couldn't reach, they were almost soulless. And I hate to say that, but they really didn't have a soul, it seemed. So it was interesting.
That is interesting. I feel like um, if you're someone who is so wrapped up in your addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or sex or whatever your addiction is, I feel like that becomes all you want to focus on. And so if you are being thwarted in achieving the high from whatever, then, you know, I'm glad I don't understand that pull, but you get angry or I saw them get angry at whoever was trying to keep them from fulfilling those cravings.
Right.
And it is a craving, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. They had big ones. And I had a supervisor that was doing a session with a person, and they were getting really upset and angry.
Hmm.
And they had actually been in the office because they had gotten angry outside in the smoking area and this and that. And the supervisor said, you're feeling things because you're not buzzed all the time, or you're not
Right.
stoned. Now you're starting to feel. And the guy just kind of looked at him like, he's right, because it was always, I think his addiction was cocaine and alcohol, so he numb himself.
Right.
Now he didn't have that, so now he felt everything and all that, and he didn't know how to handle it.
Well, it's overwhelming. It's I do understand and know what you're talking about when you talk about walking through the sludge, because I have been in environments quite by mistake. I was walking through Chicago one time and I was just like, "Oh, this is not going to end well," right? And so my friend was wanting to go down the stairs to go to the lake, I'm like, no, we're not going down those stairs, not here. And she was like the most beautiful woman I've ever known personally. She was drop dead gorgeous, a model, just woo. You hated to be in a room with the girl, right? But but she was adamant that she was going to do that. And thank heavens, a man was coming up those stairs, and he looked at her and yeah, he saw me because I was a couple of steps back going, we don't want to do this. And he looked at her, he said, you will be dead. You will
Yeah.
die if you go down those stairs, because there were already people down there. And, thank God and I do think that God put him there. I believe in God.
Yeah.
And because there was no way I was going to be able to talk her out of it, and I couldn't just watch her go, and I was like, I don't want to get hurt or worse. And you could just feel the evil emanating from the people down there. As an empath, you get that.
Right.
But yeah, I was just like, no, I'm not going down those stairs. And you could just feel everything bubbling. It was like the movie. Oh, the second Ghostbusters, where they had the sludge under New
Yeah.
York.
Yes.
That thing. That's what it
Right.
was. That's what it felt like, but black.
Right.
And I was like, no, not just no. Okay, not at all. Not even discussing this with you anymore. And when that man said that, I just looked at her and said, I'm out. See ya.
Yeah.
So I did, and she followed me because I wasn't following her anymore.
Right.
So that's interesting, don't you think? That because we read light too, we read energy, period. And when it's so dark like that, sometimes you still don't quite trust that
Yeah.
it could possibly be that dark.
Yep.
So, what was your kicker? What made you absolutely decide that, um, yeah, some of these people are just this kind of way? Did you?
I think what happened with me is that we used to have a roster. And again, like I said, I was there for, excuse me, the better part of almost 10 years.
Right.
And I would see people come in and out. Like, I think the one, and I would count. Oh, this guy's been in here 4 times. This guy's been in here 6 times. And I was like, what? They don't get it. So we worked with a couple people that were in recovery, and they were hired by us, and they were really great people. And it
Sure.
was good to have them on staff because they really understood the addicted mind, because that's where they came from. And the one guy told me, he says, Kevin, until they hit rock bottom and they know that's it, we're never going to help them at all. And I never thought about it that way, but until you've actually surrendered yourself and said, hey, I can't do this anymore, I got to give it up. And it was so true, because we had people come through there, like I said, 5, 6, 7 times, and all they'd say is they're not ready. And then they'd be like, they come in there with such hope, and yeah, Kevin, I'm ready to change this time, man, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And then 2 months later, they're discharged because they went out and used.
Yeah.
And they'll be back in 3 months. And that's
Yeah.
also part of the system, because the system didn't have cutoffs. They just continuously let them go through. And a lot of it is money. And I hate to say that, but a lot of it is money, because it's the insurance.
Well, you can't do drugs without money. At some point, you're going to have to pay somebody. And, I had a very good friend who wound up having to go through a methadone clinic. And I'm not sure what drug that treats. You probably know all about that. But he was a wonderful young man. I mean, we were in our 20s, and I met him through an outpatient psychological program that I was working for, volunteering with. And he wasn't much older than me, if at all. And just handsome and out there, happy-go-lucky when he wasn't using. But he was living in a halfway house. And I was like, oh, well, I don't think you're ready for me yet. When you're ready for me and you want to get in touch with me, please do that. But if you're still struggling, I don't want to be a problem. I don't want to be a distraction or what. I'll be supportive, but I'm not going to go and, because on South Side, foosball and darts, and I didn't drink that much, but a lot of people did. So if he went someplace there, he was in that environment. That can't be good, right? So I really admire people like you, because I was not understanding enough, because I was fortunate I didn't have an addiction issue.
Right.
So, but I had been abused by people who did. So
Right.
I didn't have a lot of patience with people who did. And anytime that somebody went back to it, I was like, oh, see, that's just what people do. I had a terrible attitude about that. And I apologize. I have to stand up for a minute, because my thing just said, we're going to shut your computer off. And I thought it was plugged up. So if you'll just bear with me a minute, because we're not going to be taking a break. So I have to move things. Bear with me. Well, this was unexpected. So let me. Nope. I'm so sorry. Race is going to shoot me. Race has a lot of personal stuff going on today, too. So I am going to sit here and peruse the room while I look for it because it's not going to unplug. It's not going to turn off right now. So maybe it's because we're talking about addiction.
You need me to do anything, sugar?
I have to find my plug. I just need 1 second. I just found it. It flew away.
You know what? We can take a commercial break real quick if that's okay. Kevin, you okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, we'll take a commercial break. She's having a day like I'm having.
And now,
I'll tell you, it's this eclipse.
Case is solved.
Things haven't been right since that happened, huh?
No, they have not.
Okay. We're going to jump into a commercial break and we'll be right back.
It is just weird.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UnX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
The UnX Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Kathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the UnX Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com.
And we're back. I am so sorry because we absolutely just had a moment, and that's all on me. So I thought my computer was completely charged. It was apparently not. Kevin, I apologize.
Oh, you're fine.
Not really. I'm sorry. That's like, don't do that. You're such a rookie.
It's quite all right. Like I said, usually it's we have some interruption because the spirits like to participate.
That happens. I mean, and what's so weird is my computer was charged. And it's good for like a day when it's charged, and I haven't used it.
No,
so
they're drawing energy.
But they do. It's so frustrating though. And meanwhile, I lost a couple of minutes of talking with you, but we're back. So now I'm not going to say nothing else can happen because I have learned things do happen. So anyway, We were talking about how people have a hard time stepping away from that darkness, even when they're in a position where they have help to do that, right? And so to me, that's just one of those tragic moments when you realize that's what they're going through. And Lori Dorsey is in chat and she said something I don't watching. Maybe she meant I am watching. So, but she has been traveling all day. So if she is actually here with us tonight, that's a big deal. So thank you very much. When you started recognizing the darkness that was there, how did, because you are an empath, you had to kind of, oh, she said she is watching, but you had to overcome some things to be able to do that work, didn't you?
Absolutely. One thing I learned early on is that you can't take it home with you. You have to leave it where it is. And it took me a little while to learn that because, again, being an empath, I'd pick up everybody's energy. And with me, I was just starting to learn about that when I started there. So I didn't know all the tricks like I do now. Right. So I would leave there completely drained and have horrible headaches and just because everyone's energy was draining me because I didn't know how to put that wall up and stop them.
Right.
So I talked to some of my friends that were witches mostly. Excuse me, allergies are getting to me. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah, I have a blue car that's green now.
We just went through that, so because I'm in the warmer section than you.
Oh, it's horrible. So anyway, as I was saying, so once I started learning how to leave that at the door, so to speak,
right,
that was the only way to do it. And then learning to protect myself, because again, I was getting like all their energy, and I worked mostly nights, so all the energy was building up during the day, and it was just kind of sitting there, and I had to walk through that all night. And that really drained me because I never realized that, walking through all that stuff, it still lingered, so it was, it was tough, but it took me a little while to learn how to do that. And then when you do step away from it, you have to really step away from it or it'll consume you.
Well, one of the things that I thought interesting was that when you first started having recognizable paranormal experiences, they were dark shadows, right?
Yes.
In your childhood home.
Yep.
And there's not a lot of difference from what I have experienced personally. And you've had a lot more experience with this, so maybe you can tell me that, no, you're crazy, girl. But when you have an environment such as that, I've picked up residual energy like what you've been talking about when I go into some old prisons, not all of them. I don't get it in jails as much as I get it in prisons. But the difference may be that the shadow beings you had in your home, were they negative like what you found in the treatment center?
Can you, well, your microphone's cutting out.
Oh, I'm sorry. How's that?
Much better. Maybe
I just stepped away from it.
No, I think it was cutting out, so I couldn't even hear you.
I'm sorry. But
I think they want to be interactive tonight.
Well, I feel like they are. And what's really funny is that I'm in my cottage and I've been here all week. There's not been a single sound the whole time I've been here in the evenings, not one. And since we've been sitting here, I've had doors slamming in places that people are not, like right next door to me. I've had engines revving. It sounded like a great big, monster truck. We've couldn't possibly have monster trucks here, right? So, I mean, it's like, okay, I hear you. I hear you. It's on, guys. But, you know, but what I had asked was because your first experiences were with shadow beings, right?
Yes.
And then I was curious once you went and were experiencing energy in the treatment center, were the shadows and the feelings of intent or just the sensations of energy, was it similar to what you had at home?
I don't think it was, just because I didn't know anything when I was younger. So I didn't differentiate between like what feelings were, as far as like whether it was a shadow being or a spirit of whatever.
Right.
But I do know, excuse me, that there were some people at this treatment facility that I did not like to go near because they just emanated bad vibes. Like there was just something about them that I knew to stay away, and I had to deal with them, and I didn't want to be unfair to them, but I
Oh
just kind
no.
of kept them at arm's length, and I dealt with them when I had to. But there were some that were just downright. I just you couldn't. They were just almost just evil, pure evil, and I
Right.
hate to say that, but some
It
were
is
just,
what it
yeah,
is.
yeah, and their energy was so bad that it would affect me.
Right. Right. Well, I was just curious because a lot of people are afraid of shadow beings, right? Like it's like, oh my gosh, they're so frightening. And I think that that's probably, I think a lot of times that that's all someone has the energy to manifest as. Because from what I understand, a full body apparition takes a lot of oomph.
Right.
You know, I don't know for sure that's true. I haven't had that experience yet, and I hope to put that off for a little while. But as we all do,
Oh yeah.
right? So I think that it would be hard to know. I mean, I know that you eventually had a lot of activity in your family home, and we're going to talk about that because I think that's what got you to where you are with this.
Mhm.
But were you ever afraid or uptight with the spirits at your home when you were little?
Oh, absolutely. They
And
because and I don't know what age range your viewership is,
everything.
but for some of the younger people, back in the day, if they've never seen The Exorcist,
Yeah.
watch The Exorcist, because I watched that when I shouldn't have watched that when it first came out. That was crazy. I should never. But again, there was more of a lax kind of thing, and my parents were just like, I watched anything I wanted to. So when I
Right.
watched scary movie, I watched the Amityville Horror when it came out, and I was like, I'm not going to go to bed for about a week.
I
So
was
yeah, it was, it
I
was
didn't
a
even
different.
get to watch Dark Shadows, okay? I was so protected.
You're lucky, because my parents were just kind of blasé about the whole thing, like,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was times where I literally, my bedroom obviously was upstairs. I would stand at the foot of the stairs and look up, and I would
Yep.
psych myself into running upstairs and jumping into bed, because I'd freak myself out so much because I had these experiences. Plus I just watched the girl with the pea soup and her head turning around, so
Yeah.
it was, yeah, so it was a lot. And although I've come across what I would deem evil spirits,
Right.
most of them weren't evil at all. They were just like, "Hey,
Yeah.
Kevin, I'm here. Hello, hi," and they
Let's
just like,
chat.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was. They just wanted me to know that they're there.
See, I think that's just so one of those freaky moment things. But, when The Exorcist came out, my grandma watched it. And yeah, because she wanted to know if I would be able to. And she put her foot down. Well, it was playing at the drive-in next door. Hey, Cal. I was looking, standing at the bowling alley, and they had it on the screen at the drive-through. So I couldn't hear it, but I was watching it, right? And I was like, oh, now I know why I'm not supposed to be watching
Oh yeah.
this.
Oh yeah.
So it was just like, ah. And so the first movie I saw that had any kind of, paranormal tension in it was The Omen.
Okay.
And I thought that was freaky enough because I had read the book, because I read
Right.
everything.
Right.
But my grandma wouldn't even let me read the book of The Exorcist.
Yeah, I read that later.
Yeah,
It was probably
I
a good
did.
call. It was I'm sure that was a good call because I think I read The Exorcist in 6th grade
hmm I
and
was older
shouldn't have
than
read
that.
that. Shouldn't have read it anytime. And William Peter Blatty, God bless him, great,
Yeah.
great author. But yeah, that was a bit much.
Well, it was a very specific book.
Yes. And I've
And
actually been to the steps because I didn't live too far from Georgetown, so I've been to the Exorcist steps.
okay.
That was interesting.
Did you have any experience on that, or were they just steps?
They were just steps, and there was just
Yeah.
it was like a group of us, and people were continuously walking by. So even if there was, I didn't pick anything up. But they were just creepy. It was just creepy knowing that those were the steps where the guy got pushed out the window and died. Those were the steps where they filmed it.
Yeah.
So that was it was just kind of creepy. But I got there in college, so I was in my 20s. So it was like,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really interesting knowing that that's where I think his name was Burke. Got pushed out the window and
Okay.
died. That was interesting,
Well, there was so much there. And Cal in chat says The Exorcist with no dialogue and context would probably stay with you. It did. It totally did. But I think that one of the things that I'm so appreciative of is that while I was very protected, I always laugh and say that my grandma was New Age before there was New Age, right? And she pretty much was. So it's weird. It was weird to me that she, blocked me on that because it was very rare for that to happen.
Right.
And so you live, you learn. And I did not really question her after I saw the little bit that I did. As Cal said, it stuck with me.
Oh, absolutely. The visuals are stunning.
Yeah. And, how old were you when you saw it?
I was 7.
Oh, okay. I keep forgetting we're such a difference in age.
Yeah.
But
I saw it in 76, 77. Yeah, somewhere around there. And I saw it on TV when I didn't see it in the theater. It was on channel, whatever the local channel was, and they cut out a lot of stuff, thank goodness, but there was enough in there. But yeah, it was on regular TV.
Get out, really?
Yes.
Well,
yeah.
I know.
Local Fox station. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
See, to me, that's just weird. But I don't know. I'm always so surprised by the power that goes with things of that nature. And I'm also interested in the fact that the people that you were interacting with at the treatment center, that you could feel some of that darkness in them because not everybody does. And it's such a self-protection.
Right.
So that's, it's not really a self-protection, it's a God protection. But it was just like, just a little bit I was around that in the day treatment center was interesting because it had addicts, it had mental health issues, it had a little bit of everything, people that needed something but didn't need it enough to be inpatient.
Right.
So I think that was kind of weird. So why don't we go ahead and talk about your book, talk about your experiences that led to the book.
Okay.
That's something that really stuck with me after we spoke the first time, is that you started so young. You really did. and yet you managed to cope with that.
Yeah.
So, what was the first thing that happened that got your attention and made you think, "Boy, that's quite unusual"?
Well, I think my first experience, excuse me, was when I was 5, and we lived in Evanston, Illinois, and one of these big old rambling. You knew it had to be haunted houses because it just was that haunted house vibe, and I
Right,
think it was built at the turn of the century. So at the time we were there, it was probably 70 something years old, so it was pretty old. But my dad and my brothers went to St. Louis for something. I think because my dad was a journalist, so he took them to a basketball game he was covering or something. So it was just me and my mother, and we were downstairs in what would be the living room, I guess, eating. And we had a wooden staircase that went to a wooden hallway, and we heard footsteps going down the hall. And I turned to my mother. I said, "Who's that?" And my mom was like, "Oh, that's my little boy." And I was like, "What little boy? I'm the only little boy in this house. I mean, what are you talking about?" You know, but she told me later she was so scared she thought somebody broke in because it was distinct footsteps
right.
across the hall. And she was like, "Okay, stay here. I'm going to go check it out." And she did, and she said she was scared every step she took up there because she thought again that was a real person. There's nobody in the house, but we clearly
Wow.
heard footsteps going down that hallway. And that was my first. And again, back then, I didn't really think of anything because as a 5-year old, what's a ghost? I don't know what that was, but
Right.
I just knew it wasn't normal because it was not. And I said, "Well, who was it?" And just innocent kid. And my mom was like, "Nobody." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I went back to
It's like, no, I heard somebody.
right, yeah. So it was just the fact that it was like weird because at the time I didn't go to school yet. So I was,
Oh,
when
okay.
my brothers went to school, I was by myself in the house with my mother. So I got to like run around the hall, and we had a creepy basement. And the attic was typical creepiness and all that. But as a kid, everything's big and that. But yeah, that first experience, looking back on it now, and again, as I relayed that to you, I could hear it in my head as if I was still there because
Right.
it was creepy. And the only other thing that happened in that house is I had a dream that all my stuffed animals walked down the stairs by themselves. That was the only other. I don't even know if it was paranormal at the time, but it was just weird. Like
Yeah.
all the stuffed animals in my room paraded right down the stairs by themselves, and
Like
that was
elephants on parade.
right, yeah. And that was like
Wow.
the only thing that I had. Like there was my brother, and I think he just made this one up. So he had one of those Lionel train sets. Do you remember
Mhm.
those? The real big
I
one.
do. I gave my grandson one.
So he put it in the attic when he got it for Christmas or whatever. So he'd go up there and he'd run it around or whatever. And he told me, he said him and his friends were up there one night, and a hand came through the window and started choking him. But I think he just told me that to scare me. I don't think that even really happened. But if
Maybe
it
he was
did,
keeping you away from the train.
maybe. But yeah, that was, like I said, that allegedly happened to him. But of
Right.
course, because he doesn't remember it, and again, some of that's his addiction problem. And I told him that. I said, "You
Yeah.
killed your brain cells." He said, "Where do you get that?" And I'm always doing that because I'm always telling people, "Hey, remember this?" And they're like, "No," and I'm like, "Well, I do." And they're like, and I'm like, "Well, you shouldn't have had like 30 beers or." So but yeah,
That's just me.
yeah, and that kind of set up for the rest of my life that I've had experiences ever since. But that
Yeah.
was the first one. And again, I've talked to so many people in this field, and it is true, when you have your first experience, it changes you forever.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and whether you want to deny it or not, and I know there's a lot of people that'll get, "Oh, I don't believe in that stuff." And then people, "Oh, hey, Kevin, come here. Hey, this happened to me." Because they were embarrassed to tell it in front of other people. And I was like, "Uh-huh. And,
Yeah.
so I get a lot of that,
Isn't
so
that funny? Because I do too. I mean, I don't go around saying, I host a radio show, but people say, well, what do you do? And I'll hand them a card, and one side says fate, and the other side says paranormal experience. And they're like, ooh, can we talk?
yeah.
And I'm like, well, we sure can. Do you want to do it on the air or right here? But it's so, there are so many more people who have the experience like you and me. I mean, I wouldn't be here if I didn't have my own, right? But almost everybody that I come across has something to. If I hand somebody my card, they'll look at the fate and then they'll flip it over and they're like, "Oh, paranormal experience. Are you an investigator?" I said, "Well, I am, but I'm an experiencer too, or I wouldn't be investigating."
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of where you are. You wouldn't be writing your books if you weren't
Right.
having something like that to share.
But yeah, I'm the same way. I don't go around. I honestly, for most people, I never tell them I wrote a book. Just because it's not that I'm ashamed of it. I'm definitely not. It's just,
No, it's a good book.
I usually get that, like, oh, hey, oh my God, this happened to my grandmother's sister, and that's fine. I love hearing the stories, but it's always, or I'll get the, oh, okay, I'll get the side eye and the, oh yeah, that's great, man, and then we'll just back away slowly, and I'm like, yeah, dude,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm crazy. I don't care. I already know that, but I still see
I get
ghosts.
that too.
But yeah, so
Yeah.
I don't. But my card says the same thing. I got my business card says author, spiritual, whatever, and I forgot what
Yeah.
else. But yeah, I go through the same thing.
Have you ever had anybody that tried to talk you down from believing you had a paranormal experience?
Yes, I go through that in my family. I've got my oldest brother does not believe in any of this. He thinks it's bunk. He doesn't believe in any of it. He thinks this is a joke. So I don't talk to him about it because we've gotten into some heated arguments about this. And I'm like, look, you believe what you believe, and I'll believe what I believe. But he'll try to ridicule me. And he read my book and he was like, yeah, that didn't happen. I was like, yeah, it did. But yeah, so that's
That has to
honestly,
be awkward.
yeah, and honestly, he's like the only one, because I think what it is, a lot of people won't tell me to my face, which I don't care. You have your beliefs, I respect that, but don't
Right.
ridicule me and try to be condescending or angry towards me because of my beliefs. That's fine. If you don't believe any of this stuff, I respect that. I totally respect that. But
And I won't be in your face. I mean,
luckily, that's never happened to me. I haven't really had any negative things happen to me. As far as when people know, oh, you see ghosts, this happens to you. I've really mostly just gotten a lot of positive, or, oh, hey, this happens to me. But my family,
right.
in my family, and I have religious people in my family, which
I do
again, that's
too.
fine. But their thing is the only ghost is the Holy Ghost, and I
Yeah.
respect that too. But they don't talk to me, so, and I'm okay with that.
Well, you just about have to be okay with that because, I'm religious. I mean, I believe that Jesus was who he said he was and did what they say he did, and that, that's it. Because how can I believe in the paranormal and not think that what happened to him was a possibility,
Right.
even though it was a different causation? And we've all seen how fast a crowd can turn on anybody. It's just, and then being like the poor, Daniel in the subway that, had a guy down who died, but he was trying to protect the people that were on his train.
Yeah.
That crowd, the government turned on him fast,
Yeah.
but he saved lives. And if that can happen in modern day times, I think that if you have somebody back then going around and what was water is wine and what is this is that, it would be really, I can see how people would do that. And, I don't have a problem believing the experiences that people share about Jesus. And so, but the reason I have that belief is because I know that stuff happens and
Right.
that there's stuff still out there. And I know that there are angels around. I know when they're there. And, there's not just dark and negative, horrible paranormal.
Right.
anything that is outside of the realm of, air quotes, normal is paranormal.
Right.
But the fact that they're spiritual beings shouldn't really be a surprise to anybody. And yet there's a lot often the tone of surprise, right? So like your brother that doesn't want to acknowledge any of that.
Right. Yeah.
You're so brave. You really are. To deal with that coming at you from within your family unit has to be very difficult.
Well, I think part of it is the fact that he lives in Texas and I don't.
Right?
So distance is a
It
good
helps. It helps. Yeah.
Like I said, Mark Twain was great when he said, fences make good neighbors. I've always loved that quote because with my family, I think that is distance. Well, at least him, But my sister's the same way. She's doesn't really believe in this, and that's cool. I mean, but she doesn't give me grief about it. She's just like, yeah, whatever. And she's a millennial, so I respect her. So but that's okay. But her mother, and she's half Japanese, so her mother's from Japan, and her mother believes in this totally.
Yeah.
Because she grew up with that in Japan as a Buddhist.
Yes.
They believe in spirits a lot, and so her mother like totally loves this. She's like, oh, that's great, you get to do this and that, and I respect that, and I'm just like, thank you, because like I'm not very close with her, but she respects that what I've done and what I've seen because she's always believed in it. So that was kind of cool.
Right. That is kind of cool. And a lot of people don't realize that the Japanese are very open to this. Asians as a whole seem to be. And, you've got the haunted forest over there, where people go to suicide. And, there's got to be something to it if they have soldiers out there stopping them.
Exactly.
They close the park so people can't go in there and kill themselves because everybody wants to go do it. So weird and wacky. Can you use a word like wacky and suicide in the same sentence? That's probably bad taste. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, what I found interesting, and it was morbidly interesting. I saw a great documentary on suicides from the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes.
And I did not know that happened that frequently. And they've actually put nets up and stuff to keep people. And the first thing I thought of was a suicide forest. And I'm a little jealous. And again, this isn't to make light of it, but my father, when he lived in Japan, climbed Mount Fuji. So he had to go through that forest to get to the top of that mountain.
Wow.
So he's actually been there. And I was like, and I used to tell him, I was like, I'm kind of jealous of you because you've been through that and you climbed Mount Fuji. And he's like, well, if you wanted to come over here, you could do the same thing. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. But
you should go.
That was years ago. He
should have gone.
Yeah, I should have. I really should have because he invited me to do that. But yeah, I just always thought that was, and I did not know about the suicide forest until I saw a documentary on that, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's cool. I mean, not that people kill themselves, but
it's kind of freaky in a cool way.
Yeah, that my dad actually had to go through there to climb the mountain, and I was like, oh wow, my dad's actually been there. So.
Well, I guess that's your gauntlet to run to get to the mountain.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize you had to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to go through the forest to get to the mountain.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But it's just crazy how people go there to die, and it's just like, my God, that place, I wouldn't want to go there because as an empath, it'd be overwhelming. And who knows what I'd see.
Yeah.
I don't really think I'd want to go.
Well, not all empaths see, but all people who see tend to be empaths.
Right.
And I don't see very often. So there's just that. But something that blows me away is we have places besides bridges, we have places here that people just disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, like, don't go there if you have a problem with being gone.
Right.
And that that blows me away because I cannot think of the name of the place right off the top of my head. I wasn't prepared for this section. That we always go off on tangents. I love
Yes, we
that.
do. Yes.
Well, we both love our topic,
Mhm.
and it's
Have,
fun to talk to somebody else
have you
that
ever
has.
talked to David Polides, the 411
No,
guy?
I have tried so hard to get in touch with him, and I have not been able to do so.
Yeah.
So
See,
after the show, if you know how to, let me know.
he's
But
always booked. I see him on a lot of these videos and a lot of these shows, and I've read one of his books, and
mhm.
that's amazing because what is doing this? He has his
Well,
theories, but nothing. I mean, one of them is like Bigfoot. I mean, can you imagine? So I always thought that was kind of neat, and then it's just amazing what happens to these people.
well, especially when they're in the middle of a lake in snow, and then they're not.
Right.
I mean, and there's no broken ice flow. They just stop, and that really kind of puts me in mind of Travis Walton's story because people saw what happened to him, and
Yes.
yet they were all about to be charged with a murder
Right.
because there was nothing indicative of him being taken other than what they said. And I've talked to Travis a lot, and his story is quite something.
Yes.
That had there not been witnesses there, no one would have known that he was taken.
Yep.
Because when he came back, he had such an astounding story, and he wasn't sharing it. I mean, he was freaked out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because they brought him back naked and cold.
Yep.
So, it's just how many people. I think that Pilates is, I think he's on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and it's interesting because when I was doing research for my Civil War book, and I went to the battlefields, I talked to a few Rangers. They would not talk to me about that. They told me, they said, no, there's no ghosts here. And if there were, we wouldn't talk to you about them anyway. We're not allowed. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, we can't talk about those things. That does, and so when he did his book and I read it, I was like, well, how, what they can't talk about anything. They can't talk about people disappearing in the middle of a state forest or whatever. But yeah, and I read that. I thought that was interesting because I got shut down when I tried to ask about ghosts on a battlefield to a park ranger, and they're like, we can't talk about that.
I got that at Stones River battlefield too. And the weird part is at that particular battlefield, they have black silhouettes of soldiers in different places.
Oh.
So the first time my husband took me up there, we had gone to go buy a machine for the shop. And so I'm like, I want to stop here. He's like, okay. And he felt it too, which is he doesn't feel anything. He's so analytical. He's an engineering mindset. He's just very methodical. And so I'm getting sensations and activity and faces. And, I turned around. The first time I saw one of those silhouettes, I just turned around and there it was. And I was like,
oh, man.
Oh, whoa. Okay. Because I see spirits like that a lot when I see they're just black entities. But it was so strong down in the bloodbath area that I had different I had 3 or 4 different recorders, and I had set 2 of them down. He was like, do you want me to take that one over here so that you can triangulate the sound? And I'm like, why, yes, I do want you to do that. And it's the only time he's ever helped me investigate. But it was there was a lot there. There was a lot there. And I've heard people who were at Chickamauga battlefield outside of Chattanooga. A woman I know was on her way home from work, and there was like a regiment crossing the street in front of her. The car on the other side of it stopped too. And it was not a reenactment because they were ghosts.
Yep.
And I've walked up on a reenactment out at Fort Morgan and stuff before, and that was a trip. Mainly when the Panzer tank came out of the woods, that got my attention because it was pointing at me. But oh my gosh, it was something else. It was something else. But I didn't even know, right? Why would we have a tank at a southern fort, right? But it was
Yeah,
active during
exactly.
World War II. It was active during the World Wars also because of the shipbuilding and stuff in
Right.
Mobile, and they were trying to make sure that submarines didn't get in there.
That just must have been
But
something though, seeing a Panzer tank come out of the woods in America.
I know, right? And I'm just like, why is there even a tank here? I
So,
don't even
and
get this.
honestly, that's a good segue because that's actually one place that I would love to go to, but I'm afraid to would be some of the death camps over there
Yes.
in
Oh my
Germany.
word.
I would
Have
love
you
to
ever?
go to Auschwitz.
Yes.
I've heard some horror stories about, not horror stories per se, but like ghostly things that have happened to visitors there, and obviously that those places would just be horrible, obviously, but um, paranormally they'd be something else because
They are.
there's just
Have you spoken with any type of empath who has been there?
no, I have not.
You would probably want to rethink that. And because that energy is so strong and horrid, because while you would like to think that time has gone by, they're at peace, things are different now. Um, Not always.
Mm,
And I don't know what the trigger is for when somebody goes and it's tranquil and when somebody goes and it's not.
hmm
I don't know what that deal is. But I do know that I have friends who have done that, who are psychic, who are just empaths. They don't work on their psychic side at all.
right.
But oh my goodness, I one of them said I just felt like I was dying,
Oh man.
and I was like, I hope somebody got you out,
Yeah.
because oh wow.
Yep. Yeah, I never
So
really thought about that, but yeah, now that you said that, yeah, the energy is probably overwhelming, obviously, with all that death and destruction.
yes, I
um,
mean so many, and the problem being also the people that did it,
right.
because you've got their energy that allowed them to be the people that did that,
Yep.
right? How do you disvalue
hmm
someone so much that you can possibly contemplate doing that to a human?
right. Right.
You know,
And I don't have a fascination with Hitler at all, but just studying how a race could do that to people is just mind
well,
blowing. How could somebody like, oh, we were following orders? I mean, I watched the Nuremberg trials,
yes,
and it's just horrible. How that could have been your grandmother. So if
yes,
somebody had done that to your grandmother, it would have been okay because they were following orders too. And again, I know that they didn't, but it was just how,
yes,
and I've seen these videos with these prison guards, and it's just
yes.
no, they had to have been psychopathic or something because
They were a psychopath.
yeah, you
Well,
can't. I don't think you could have done that.
Hitler, I don't get that either. Okay, because I did not find any footage that I've seen of him, any you know thing I've read about him. I've not found anything that makes me think, oh, well, I would have followed him to the ends of the earth.
Right.
I mean, no
Absolutely.
way. And
Absolutely.
I've never met a single human that had that kind of draw.
Right.
And so I cannot imagine being a reasonably intelligent person, you know, but I think possibly because you felt it when you were in your treatment center,
Mhm.
right? That there is that side I think every human has the potential to cross that line.
Yeah.
And I think that if you don't guard strongly, it's like what we're seeing now. There are Americans who have been born and raised in America who have no skin in the game with, you know, the Gaza situation other
Right.
than crisis of humanity,
Right.
which is what Nazism was. And we're seeing just in our country the hatred level toward Judaism
Yeah.
is getting to that frenzy pace. And I don't think it's unlike how Nazism became strong.
Right. Oh,
I
absolutely.
can totally see in what is happening in our streets and what is being allowed to happen in our streets
Yes.
a repetition of Nazi Germany.
Right.
Only
Oh,
it's coming in under a Palestinian flag.
right. These are scary times. I mean,
They are
honestly,
scary times. I would not. I can't imagine being Jewish and an adolescent or young teenager living in a dorm somewhere, and this is what's coming into my school. And it's
Right.
coming through educators, it's coming through students, it's coming through cafeteria workers, it's coming
Yeah.
through accountants, it's coming through all walks of life.
Yeah.
It's the same
Absolutely.
thing. It's Nazism under a different name.
Yep. Absolutely.
And we're allowing that. We are protecting that. And because you can't yell fire in a crowded elevator or theater. So why
Exactly.
can you say, let's get rid of Israel, period?
Right. Yeah. It's
That's
yeah.
the same thing.
If I had thought 15, 20 years ago this would have been like this now, I wouldn't have believed it. And that's just like the tip of the
Never.
iceberg. I'm talking about everything that's going on. I mean, to think that I'd have to pay so much for gas, so much for food, and just everything that's going with this country that's gone wrong. I'm just like, man, I never saw this coming.
I don't think anyone did. You would never think that in this time period, especially, it's been very fast.
Right.
And, I don't care what your political ideology is, because that's a personal nature. But I do think that not taking care of what needs to be taken care of, and it's a legal obligation, is a bad look. I think that it's obviously bad for the people who are in the way of what winds up being a problem. And I don't know how they're coping with that either. It's just like with the protests. You can protest. We have that right in America. We can say anything, and it's free speech. But we are not released from the obligation that goes with free. Like, you can't say something that's a threat. You can't say something like the fire in the theater. You can't do something that could be perceived as a threat.
Yep.
And yet people are. It's scary.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the wave of negativity is not natural.
Right. Right. Well,
Which is where
remember, and he's one of my personal people that I've always loved in this field, Art Bell.
I loved Art Bell. Yeah.
Art Bell was great, but he used to talk about the quickening, and I think that's actually happening.
And who would have thought, right?
Right. And I was like, when I remember when he was talking about it, I was like, wow, this is an interesting concept. And then I'm like, wow, you realize it's almost 5 months into this year. Wasn't it just January 1st? Now it's almost May.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, all this other stuff. So I loved listening to Art Bell. But yeah, that's
the older you get, the faster that goes, just so you know. You're not old. But it is. I get you.
But like, even with like the eclipse, I joke in my current job about, the eclipse affecting people. And then on top of that, having the moon phase. And I'm like,
Yes.
yeah. And I was talking to somebody at work today about that. And I work with people with intellectual disabilities now. So I've got their, you know, a whole different set, but they've got their own thing. But yeah, so when they start having behaviors, and this last 2 weeks has been a lot where I'm working because it's the moon and it's the eclipse. I'm telling you, and people are
I
like, "Yeah,
agree.
I think you're right," and I'm like, "No, I think it is because they increase." And I've noticed, especially around the new moons,
Hmm.
behaviors increase, especially on the weekends. Like a Friday will be horrible for us because the moon's coming up, and I always joke, but people are like, "No, you have something there," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, I know," but yeah,
Well, but
so
that is historically believed. I
yeah,
mean, lunacy, right?
absolutely, yep,
That's where it comes from.
that's exactly right, lunatic.
Yeah. And I am there's a Jimmy Buffett song you can take to people that it's called The Everlasting Moon, and they call it lunacy. It's really a good song. So you can play that when when you have that opportunity. I'll send you the link. But it really is such a real thing. And you're affected by the moon.
Yes,
I'm affected by the moon.
yep,
And when
oh
it's
yeah,
full, I can't be out in it enough. But I like it in every phase, though.
yeah, I
So
totally agree.
I'm I'm a sun I'm a sun chick, but I like the moon too. I love sunshine. I thrive when it's
Right,
when it's
right,
strong.
and that's one thing I need to get back to doing. And I was just talking to my girlfriend about that the other day. Is I got away from nature. I used to
You
love just
got to get
taking
in there.
taking a walk in the woods grounds me and makes me feel good. And I've gotten away from that so much because I live near a lake and I live kind of on a hill and I have all sorts of wildlife around me. I love walking out to my car seeing a deer.
Hmm.
That makes me happy. It's like, oh, that's for me. That was put there for me. There was a reason that deer came out of those woods for me to see them. And we got all sorts of birds and animals and but yeah, I got away from nature and I need to get back to it.
No, you can't be away from it for long.
Yeah.
It really, you know, people laugh at me because I always say I'm a hammock layer, but that's how I see what I see in the sky
Hmm.
because I'll just be outside and you know I I grew up loving the Pleiades and Orion's belt just has been my mark my whole life. And it's you have to be outside
Yeah, absolutely.
and you have
Plus,
to be
it's
able
good
to
for you.
see. Yeah,
Vitamin D from the sun.
yeah, absolutely. But and even when I lived urbanly in Atlanta, and Birmingham's not got quite as much light pollution, but
Right.
still too much. But even when I lived in Atlanta, I would go out to Stone Mountain or wherever, and I
Right.
wound up moving further out as time went by.
Right.
But I've got to be able to see the sky at night. I need the night sky.
Yeah.
So, but that's just one of those things that grounds me. So, does hiking and stuff, is that what grounds you?
Yeah. Just walking through the woods. Like when I lived in Pennsylvania, there was a beautiful state park called Lynn Run. And the first time we ever went to it, the first thing I said when I got out of the car and looked around, I said, "This is good Bigfoot territory." First thing, and my girlfriend at the time looked at me like I was nuts. And it was
Yeah,
funny because we were
I would look at
walking,
you like you were nuts too.
and we were walking. I said, "Something's following us," and she was like, "How do you know that?" I said, "I just feel it." And then something ran out of the woods or something, and she was like, "Oh my God, how did you know that?" I said, "I just do. We should talk." Because it was early in our dating. She
Yeah,
didn't know anything about me, and I was like, okay, we need to talk.
yeah,
So, and I had some experiences with her that are in the book, but yeah, that
yeah.
was the first thing I said. I said this is good Bigfoot territory. but it's a beautiful, beautiful state park.
Yeah. Would you actively seek out Bigfoot?
Yes.
You
As a
would.
matter of fact, I've got a friend from Michigan, and I'm trying. She's a witch. I'm trying to get her to do a dogman expedition
Where are you going to do it?
in Michigan.
Really?
But she's actually afraid. She's like, Kevin, I really don't want to know if there is
Well,
or not. And I can understand. I said, so seriously, if I came up there and like showed up on your doorstep and said, hey, let's go find Dogman, she's like, you're going by yourself.
I can tell you somebody who does look for Dogman or Bigfoot or whoever, and they live in Wisconsin. And he's been on my show a couple of times. Jay Baerchen
Okay.
from Finding Bigfoot.
Yes. Yes.
He did. He turned around and he said this on my show, so I'm not talking out of turn. But he had taken. They live right on the edge of this area of a lot of lakes, and it's very much a wilderness. It's beautiful, and they hike in the snow. I mean, they're just insane. And to be honest, I'm like, oh no, that's fire and drinks, not out. But he is the Finding Bigfoot, and then he did Finding Jay, and you should reach out to him because I saw footage that had him turned around. His daughter was out with him; she was 4, and behind his daughter was a figure, and so yeah.
Oh wow.
And when it realized that Jay saw him, it was gone.
Oh wow.
And his discussion of how they move was fascinating. And you need to go with somebody, maybe not Jay, but somebody with the expertise that Jay has.
Right.
Because that is not small game hunting. That is you being the small game.
Right.
If you get out there.
Yep.
And for anyone listening, do not go just randomly finding Bigfoot, because if you do, what are you going to do? And if you're going into their environment,
yep,
you're putting yourself on a par with them, and the speed is incredible.
Yeah.
Their speed that's what blew my mind. There's a guy here. We have them here. And I saw one on his footage because he always puts his camera on his shoulder as he's walking out of the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And as he's walking out, there was a small black speck that just came up beside a tree and then just turned around and walked away.
Wow.
And I mean, he didn't know it was there. So, and you could tell that he's just, because he was filming before he started walking out and stuff.
Right. And see, my theory is like, I think they move around by portals. That's my theory. I kind of think they can go from wherever, because and again in like the 411, where
there's
they disappear. So I that like I said, my thing is like, remember the Pac-Man game where you can go out of the side and come around the other side? I think that's what they can do with portals. And again, I've been in places in like West Virginia, Tennessee, Virginia, that I don't even think humans have been, and so many. So who knows what we got there? Yeah. I didn't really want to find out because I would, like you said, I would be
not by yourself.
Yeah, and it was there's places. So again, with all like the cryptids and everything, who knows? You got to keep an open mind. I mean, I'm thinking if I've had experiences with spirits and this and that, why not with a Bigfoot or a Dogman or a Chupacabra, or
I don't want that one either.
I have a couple of friends in Jersey that have gone to the Pine Barrens, and we were going to do an expedition looking for the Jersey Devil. I was going to try and write a book.
Did they find anything?
No, they had a lot of creepy experiences, but I never was able to get up there to go with them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. So, because we were always joking about that, and they were like, Kevin, we really need to do that. Come on up here and we'll go do an expedition about the Jersey Devil, because the Pine Barrens are creepy because they have all sorts of stuff, not necessarily a devil, but they have a lot of weird high strangeness over there.
I think they've had a lot of bodies tossed out there too in their day.
Yep. Yep. Did you ever watch The
So
Sopranos?
that's the place that used to happen a lot, I think.
Yeah. Did you ever watch that show?
I grew up with some people like The Sopranos, though. Alabama version, nope, never have.
Okay, because they actually had an episode
But
called The Pine
but I
Barrens.
do read Janet Ivanovich. So
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're a Stephanie
did
Plum
they
fan?
really?
Yeah,
I'll check that out.
yeah.
I
I'm a
am a
big
Stephanie
fan.
Plum fan.
I am a big fan of Stephanie
So
Plum, and I'm not afraid to say that Joe Morelli's my guy. I know a lot of people like Ranger,
really,
but
because I think so
I'm a
too.
Joe
Well,
Morelli guy.
Ranger is for I'm a Joe Morelli girl because Ranger is fun and dangerous, but
Yes,
if you're going to go home and have babies, it's got to be Joe Morelli.
right. And
So,
I love Lula and
oh
Grandma.
my gosh,
Grandma
I
Mason is
know
awesome. I
I
know people like that, and
both of them.
yeah, and it's just every time I see him, I'm just like, oh my god, because yeah, that's a guilty pleasure. I think I've read all of her books.
I have. I'm waiting on the new one coming out
Yeah,
this fall.
yes,
I haven't
Jenny.
pre-bought it yet, but I will.
Yeah, she's something else. I wish they would have made a better movie, but
I know, right? And she's got some. I tell you what, if I were an author, that's the goal I'd shoot for.
yeah,
Is her her she's got a science, right? And
yeah,
some of them are just so silly. It's like, oh,
yes,
come on.
yeah,
And but they still work. They still
yeah,
sell. Everybody's going to buy her new books.
absolutely, yeah.
And I'm waiting to buy yours. So I'm ready.
I'm waiting to finish it.
I
So
know.
that segues nicely into something. Can I plug a few things while I'm here?
No, we're not. We don't know that plugging. No. What are you asking me for? Plug
Okay, so there's
away.
actually not plugs more. So okay, so again, like I said, I'm working on a book on near death experiences. I'm almost finished. I'm putting the finishing touches on it. If anybody in your audience would care to add anything, they could send me their stories. I've gotten some incredible stuff, and mine wasn't as incredible as a lot of people, yet it still was a good NDE. But in doing research for this book, I've come across some great stories that are just mind blowing.
I can't wait because
So
I
if anybody listening would want to
I'd
do
love to.
that,
Yes,
send it to me at my email if you want to give it to them at the end of the show.
I will have to make sure it's kkillenbt@gmail.com.
Yes,
Right?
ma'am.
I'll put that
Yes.
in chat.
Okay, so that's number one. So number two, I'm starting to get back into the whole grounding thing, and
Yeah.
I've kind of gotten away. I'm like I said, and this is in the book, and one of my former girlfriends and still a good friend of mine is a witch, so I wanted to explore that side a little more because it's kind of weird. It's kind of touch and go because I've touched upon some groups on Facebook, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, I was, if you wanted to contact me and maybe kind of give me some pointers and kind of go, because I've read so much about all different types of witchcraft, just kind of seeing what was out there. That
Be
it also
careful who you talk to.
right, and that's another thing too, is that
I
I'll
have.
definitely
I am. I am cautious about who I do that with. So
right. Oh,
yes.
absolutely,
And I'm cautious.
absolutely,
In fact, I'm cautious about who I interview, much less,
right,
travel or work with,
right,
because, and it's not because I don't like witches. It's because different people do things different ways,
right.
and I like to be aware before I just go with that. So it's it's a cautionary statement.
No, absolutely. Like I said, I totally agree. That's why I'm saying I've come across these different things. Um, so my third thing is, have you had dream interpreters on your show before? I'm sure you have,
One,
correct?
I had Dee Dee Jabril on with me.
Okay, okay. I've been on her
She's
show.
really good.
Yeah. See, I didn't know she did that because I used to I did her show when she was
Paranormally Blonde.
yes, I was on that show a couple times,
Me too.
and I didn't realize she was a dream interpreter. So
Oh,
what I was trying to
she's great.
yeah, and that's the thing that I really liked her. Um, I've got her on email. I might just shoot her an email, but I was going to ask because
Yeah,
I've been having some really kind of weird dreams, and I just
really.
kind of wanted to see because I'm thinking they're more. They seem to be more geared towards somebody else, but through my eyes. Does that make any sense?
Like you're seeing somebody else's experiences
Right,
as you.
right. And I just wanted to kind of see if that were true or not because it's kind of and none of them ever make sense, but it's almost kind of like a movie. Like I'm not
Right.
even there; it's somebody else's thing. I'm kind of on the sidelines, but then all of a sudden I'm there. But it seems to be, and again, these are like people I've never seen before, people I don't know. So I don't know if it's like an astral projection thing or some past life regression.
That's what I was going to suggest. I bet that
You
it's
know,
a past life regression type thing.
and see, I had one last night where I was on like it was like a clearing with some other guys. All of a sudden, Southern soldiers came out of the woods and on horses, and they said, "Hello, boys." And I took off running up this hill and went through and I could hear the horses coming after me. But yeah, and that's where the dream stopped. But I was like, wait a minute, was I a Yankee? And then I was disappointed because I'm Southern, and I was like,
Well,
why am
maybe
I
you were a
here?
deserter.
Maybe
Maybe you were
And I was
hiding.
like,
Or
I was like, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong stuff because I've had dreams before that where I've actually been. So I used to work with the girl that I had a dream about, and I was like, I was on a horse. I was in a town in the Civil War, and I was wearing my gray, and I was talking to her,
right.
and she was like, "Really?" Because she's had experiences too, and I was like, "Yeah." I said, "That's why I've always had this feeling I know you."
Hmm.
And she's like, "Wow, Kevin, that's weird." I said, "Well, yeah, it really was, but so I've never really delved
Maybe
into
not
that,
so
but
much. Maybe not
but
so much.
what do you mean?"
Well, you're a sensitive, you're an empath, you have some psychic abilities, and you didn't know that that was somebody that you had known in the past until you were sharing a past life experience with her.
True.
I mean, that you write books about that. Accept it when it happens.
That's true.
So,
That is true. But yeah, so I didn't realize Dee Dee. I have to get a hold of her because again, it's just some of these things are bothering me, and there's also um, dreams about my house growing up that for a while I didn't dream about it, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to have dreams about being back there again, and
mhm.
I don't know. I'm sure that's a subconscious thing, but
Maybe it says you're coming to the end of your book.
could be that could be the journey.
I think that if you peruse, and I'm going to tell everybody this, if you peruse the list of shows that are on the unxnetwork.com
Mm-hmm.
page, the show schedule is pretty amazing. And you can find different topics and different answers going through that. But Dee Dee and Sarah Jane, I think, were here. I'm not sure if they still are. I think they are. And that would be a way to reach out to her too. But I know that she's doing a little podcast, I think, on Facebook. Dee Dee
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I haven't talked to them in a
So
while. Like I said, I got hacked, and
I did too.
a lot of my contacts disappeared, and
Yeah.
those were two of them that I haven't talked to in a couple years because I couldn't get through to them.
Well, all you have to do with Sarah is, type Sarah Jane V and then let it fill you in
Yeah,
because
that's
there's not
right.
many like her.
Yeah, yeah. She's good. I like her.
Yeah.
I like both of
We
them.
have been, Sarah Jane and I signed up for our Reiki classes at the same time. So
Oh wow.
online Reiki.
You have a new host, or co-host? Because I think she's with a guy now.
That is the
Is that
guy that she does the the ghost hunting adventures with, I think.
Oh, okay. Because I saw that the
Yeah.
other day on Facebook, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" I said,
Get
"Oh,
Haunted.
Race knows.
The Get
What?
Haunted crew. She's that
Yes,
guy.
Get Haunted. Thank you. I could not think of the name of it.
okay."
But
Because I was,
thank
that
you,
kind of
Race.
threw me because I was like, "Oh, what happened to Dee Dee?"
Well, Dee Dee and she were still doing a show together, but he
Okay,
does the Get Haunted, and
right.
Sarah Jane and he are partners in Get Haunted.
Gotcha. Okay,
So,
Paranormally Blonde with Dee Dee and Sarah both. They did the Unnex Network for a good while.
are they not still?
No, they're not still here now, but we
Okay.
used to have a lot of fun. I honestly, I think I might have ran them off. I don't, I don't know.
I doubt it.
I don't know. I'm an ornery cuss, but
Well,
I
they can be
loved
too.
having-
They're brave enough to take you.
I loved having them. Dee Dee and her dream analyzation was always so cool, and Sarah is just so. I mean, she's gritty, man. She is get in the dirt and go.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
But she didn't used to be. It's when she started doing the power training that it changed her whole life. It
Oh
really
yeah,
did.
like I
It
said,
was
I
so cool.
used to like watching her pictures where she'd have her guns.
Oh my
And I'd be
gosh.
like, look at
And
those.
she'll
I
break
said,
those
wow.
weapons out anytime.
Yeah,
She is
and I was just
feisty.
like,
I love
just
her.
wow. I was just like, yeah, and like I said, I got hacked and I lost a lot of contacts, and there were 2 of them.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
need to reconnect with them.
they're easy to find, but if you've got Dee Dee's email, then she'll get you to Sarah Jane too.
Yeah.
And yes, I know I'm the only person that still calls her Sarah Jane. That's okay. She doesn't care. But no, those are 2 of my favorite peers. I'm very fortunate to call them both friend, and that's really a cool thing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing their show.
Yeah. Well, we've only got about 10 minutes, a little bit more than 10 minutes. What do you want to talk about before we go? I'm sure there's something that you're wanting to get out there.
5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes? We've got 5 minutes. You better hustle up.
We gotta drop 5.
No, anything's fine. Like I said, I just wanted to let your audience know what I've been doing, and maybe they could reach out to me or whatever. But yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm working on this book. That was the other thing that happened, is one of my computers crashed and I didn't back anything up, and I lost 3 manuscripts.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So
you know better.
Yeah,
I know better, and I
believe me, I was furious because they weren't close to being done, but I had enough in there to keep going, and now I have to start everything over. So maybe it was a good thing, because now I have to actually do some more research, so maybe it'll make it better.
Couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
I have found that there's never such thing as too much research.
Yes.
So
that is true.
Well, how far are you out on getting this next book out?
When
should I start looking for it?
Literally putting the finishing touches as far as just editing, and then I'm good. So I can get it over to the publisher. Usually it's between like 12 to 18 months. So if I can get it over, I'll give myself July, because with the way things go, I've been planning this for like a year and a half now, and life keeps happening. So probably, if I'm lucky, July of next year, at least, the earliest. So, and you're still the first interview.
Yes. Yay.
I told you that last time. My next book is the first interview. So
I didn't know if you would remember that. Thank you for doing
yes,
that.
I do. I said, absolutely. I said, Kat's the first interview when this comes out.
Kev?
I'm ready. Yes.
You had, Kat, if I could, Kev, you mentioned earlier about, people reaching out to you about near death, right?
Yes.
Now, do you see the commercial we played for Mindy Taub?
I did. I did. I thought that was funny, because I was like, oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. And I saw the book. I was like, oh,
she would be great to talk to. If you don't, if you need her contact information, let me know.
Yeah, if you could shoot that over to me, that'd be awesome.
You got it. Kat, if you would just like marry us together on an email, and I
will do that.
All over to him.
Great. Yeah, that looked like a really interesting book.
I tried to put it.
Go ahead,
I tried to put his email in chat, and it wouldn't let me post it. It said but it failed to post.
I know. I mean, like, I was going to type to you and say, can you see what I'm typing? Because it wasn't going through. I don't know
Right.
what is going on.
I
tried
don't
to
either.
order a pizza earlier tonight and it screwed up. Something's not right. Something is,
During the show?
no, right before. Right
Yeah,
before the show.
I'm just giving you a hard
literally
time.
while I was waiting on you and him to get there, because I texted you and I said, are you coming? Because usually
Yeah.
you're there by like 10 till at least.
Yes, I am.
And it was like 5 till, and neither one of you were there. And I was like, wait a minute, am I in the right place? Am I in the right room? So,
you were just on your own, man.
I don't, but I didn't want my wife to have to cook tonight, so I was just going to order a quick pizza. And
Yeah.
I can't have red sauce on it because I have acid reflux, and that stuff just kicks my stomach's butt. And so I have to tell them, I have to put on there no red, and it would not let me click on the sauce deal to say light sauce, heavy, extra. I could not. That was the one thing. I ordered it custom, perfect, everything I wanted, and then I just couldn't get to that. So I had to cancel that whole deal out. I can't, I'm not paying $25 for a pizza to be delivered, and then
that you can't eat.
I can't eat it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't fight. So, but everything, I was typing in the thing, it wasn't going through. I don't know what in the world is going on tonight, and audio has been intermittent. So everybody listening, this is the producer jumping in here, running my mouth for a few minutes, apologizing to all of you. I'm so sorry that we've had these issues. I'm not real sure exactly what caused it. I don't know if it may be weather related. I'm not real sure.
I think it's spirit. Yeah.
That's usually what happens when I go on these shows, is that they like to interact, and we have a lot of issues. I think every show I've ever been on, something's happened. So I've just come to the conclusion it's me.
That happens to our owner, Margie K, a lot too. She's the same way. Like that poor woman has more problems with computers. I told her she needs a Faraday cage around her whole body. But Kevin,
there are people that need that.
Having you've been awesome. I'm going to get out of your way.
Thank you. It's been great on the show. I've enjoyed this time, and it went too quick.
It always does. I mean, I enjoyed our first show. Was just like bada boom, it's done.
Yeah.
Right. And I am so appreciative of you. I love your work. I enjoy talking to you.
Thank you.
And you're such a good guest. And I really count you as a friend, even though we've only actually spoken twice. But I follow you and I pay attention. And I'm glad that you're doing so well.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
Like I said, now that I've got you on Facebook again, because like I said, I got hacked on Facebook. Now I'm actually back on there, so I actually can see your feeds and stuff. So that's good, because you had something about a puppy earlier, and I didn't get the chance to hit it. But
yeah,
I did see your Eclipse pictures; they were cool.
Thank you. I had a great time, and I did learn that you have to actually use a pen. You can't make a big circle, or it won't show up. But it showed up perfectly with the small, tiny pen.
I could. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
I could see it.
Thank you so much for being here.
I
know Race has some getting around that he's going to have to do, and there's a reason Robin's not cooking tonight, so we're going to let him get to it. And I am so ready for our next interview, and I don't care if it's July. I don't care if it's tomorrow. Whenever that book comes out, let me know so I can get it, so I'll be ready for the interview. Or just shoot me a PDF and whatever. We'll do it as soon as it's out.
Absolutely.
And I will keep time open when it starts getting close to time.
Good.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being had. So I want to let everyone know that you can find Kevin. His book's available on Amazon, and it's really good. It's Ghosts and Me. And his last name is Killen. So you will find him. And thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for taking care of the network. I love being part of the UNX network. And I will see you Sunday on Fate. But it will be same cat time, same cat channel. So take care. Be safe. See you next time. Good night.